What's going on, guys? Niko here, and in this video, I'm going to share with you my top 10 tips when it comes to writing better melodies. Here's the example we're going to walk through today. Jump in, I'm giving away 10,000 melodies absolutely royalty free. Comment down below melody mastery, subscribe to the channel, and smash the like button. I select one winner every Friday. Now, jumping into this video, I'm going to show you guys how I created this entire melody, and I also want to show you guys the entire project file, the layering, and all of the good stuff that's going on, so make sure you watch all the way until the end. Tip number one, guys, it's your chord progression. The chord progression is the guide of what the melody is going to sound like, and you can really generate an awesome emotion depending on what chord progression you select. Now, I'm going to break the chord progression out for you here. We actually have a free chord progression guide that you can get in the description box below that has over 50 chord progressions with their emotions and everything else going on. Now, I want a happier, more pop chord progression for this, so I'm going to use the F major, C major, A minor, and G major here. We'll be working in the key of C for now, although the song is not in the key of C, so it sounds a little bit different. But I'll show you what that all means. Let's get the A and then the G. I'll put the G right here. And then I'll make these chords for you guys using my chord strategies. So we take our root for the major chords. We count 3-2, 3 notes in between. And then 2 notes in between that. And then for our minor chord here, we use the 2-3 strategy. Again, I have other videos covering this stuff. This is more about melody, and I'll make these full lengths. Let's give this a listen now by itself. Sounds very poppy, but what I want to do is I want to change up the rhythmic variation. This is the second tip. You can have your chord progression, but if you change up the rhythm, it adds another flavor to it, right? So I'm going to make this a bit shorter, and I'm going to drag these this way and see how this sounds. Let's try this. And I like that different variation that we have going on there. So the third tip is how we're actually going to write the melody. There's different ways to do it, but in this video, I want to use melody starters. So if you haven't seen my channel before or you're new, what I've done over my history is play thousands of popular songs and take the melodic sequences that are the most common and then give them to you. So I'll just show you exactly how this works. What we have going on here is we have our C major scale. So I label the notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I found common patterns across all songs. One of them I'm going to draw in right now is the 1-5-1. Another one could be the 5-6-1. And another one could be the 7-1-5. So instead of drawing out the entire melody again, I just want to show you specific parts of the melody where I'm using melody starters. If we listen from the beginning right here, that bum bum, right here we're using the 1-5-1 melody starter, C, G, C. And again, I showed you guys that before. Another one, if I continue playing through it, this part right here, this part, the dun dun dun, that's the 1-7-5 melody starter. And again, I played this on the piano. I wasn't doing this and thinking about these melody starters, but I had some ideas. I started playing with the 1-5-1, and that's where this all came from. And then if we continue playing through this melody, here we go. Right here, it's very subtle and very quick. It's the 5-6-1. And again, this is in a lot of modern music, and I've played so many songs at this point. And if you want to learn piano, check out the Modern Piano Masterclass below and the other videos on this channel, because playing piano just takes all of this to the next level, right? I wrote this on the piano. That being said, that's the third one, melody starter, right? Now, where do we go from here? There's 7 more tips. I want to go through these pretty quickly so I can show you the rest of my project. Another one, steps versus leaps. On the piano, when we're writing melodies, we want a healthy balance between jumping, which is a leap, or going steps. So stepwise motion in the theory world is basically going up and down like this. Let's go down lower on the piano. Right, so you're not really jumping around too much. You have the notes are pretty steady here. Now, what a step is, you're just going from one note in the scale to the next, up and down with no notes in between. A jump, however, sounds like this. Now, if you have too many jumps, your melody kind of sounds all over the place, but if you have too many steps, it may sound like something Bach or Beethoven wrote, which may not be bad for what you're trying to do, but in modern music, I've always found there's a healthy balance. And if we look at our melody here, you know, right away we start with a step or a huge jump. Right here, the intro of the melody, we had a jump. And then if you notice, I'll zoom in more, right here, those are all steps. So I'm doing this throughout. I have a lot of steps, and then I also have a lot of leaps. And if you're ever struggling and saying, oh, my melody's not good, I don't know what to do next, try, if you're using too many steps, to use a couple more leaps in your melody. Now, going off of leaps and steps brings me to my next tip here, and that's the directional movement of the melody. When I write melodies, sometimes I'll look outside my window here and I'll look at the mountains and I'll say, okay, it goes up and it goes down. And I like looking at nature. And when I write my melodies, I try to think of situations where I can have nice directional movement. Now, a great way to get directional movement is to use something called octave jumping, whereas you take one note in your melody and you randomly jump it up an octave. So if I have, let's say, the C here, and I'm going up and down my piano, so like this. Some people never think to jump up and make huge leaps. This is a massive leap. But what it does is it opens up your melody and makes it nice. And I have a perfect example of it in here, actually multiple examples of it right in this section. If we just play this part right here, right here we have one octave jump. We have the G to the G, and then we have right here the C to the C. We have a C to the C. I don't know what that was, but what's going on here is that we have nice octave jumps, and it's followed by, again, that stepwise motion. So, you know, the way it works when I'm writing these melodies here is every time there's a massive leap, it tends to follow some stepwise motion. So that's the next tip. Going on from here, repetition, guys. Repetition, repetition, repetitions. Humans love hearing the same thing, but always having a little bit of a different topping on the ice cream. Sometimes they like sprinkles, sometimes gummy bears. It could be many different things. I like gummy bears personally, but when I look at this melody and I break it down to the 8 measures, let's just listen, right? Now, if I were to break down the structure of it, it may look a little bit different, but there's a lot of repetition going on. This introduction part right here, dun, 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 dun. Right? If I play that in the first 2 measures, and then I go to 5 and 6 right here, they're essentially the same thing. Now, measures 3 to 5 right here, this is a bit different than what precedes 7 and 8. So while we're having repetition in the first 2 measures, and then there's a little bit of break, and then another 2 measures, people want to hear that. So if you write a nice, catchy melodic riff, feel free to repeat it later on. That's what I did in this melody here. Now, the 7th tip is the amount of notes that you're using. Sometimes you're writing melodies and you just put too many notes together, and sometimes there's not enough. What I found with most of my students is that they add way too many notes and try to make the melody over complicated. You don't need to add too many notes, but if it does seem a bit bland, you could take notes and add away. For example, in this part right here, if we just listen to this part of the melody, I can get rid of this note, and I can probably get rid of this note right here. And I think it sounds good. However, I added a couple of the same notes, or added notes before and after it. And again, this tip doesn't really apply to this melody that much, but a lot of you guys out there, if you're ever struggling, you don't really know to go where, you're drawing in too many notes, you're playing too many notes, slow it down and take away. Normally, taking away is not going to do anything bad to your melody. Most of the melodies are very simple that are catchy and popular. So I play it one more time. Now, going on to the 8th tip, it's changing up your chord. Now, what this is called is chord substitution. And in chord substitution, you could take a power chord, you can make it a major chord, you could take a major chord and you could make it a 7th chord. And by changing up the chord underlying the melody, you kind of change the melody in itself, right? So if I go here and I look at this chord, this is basically a C power chord or an F power chord right here. And what I can do is I can actually make this a 7th chord. I cover that in other videos, but if we just listen to this now, it didn't really sound that good. I know it was very quick, but maybe all we do is we take this power chord, because it's essentially a power chord, which is just, 2 notes, and we can add in another note to give it texture right here. Same with our C chord right here. Put that in line. This is a C power chord. It is really, in the end, a C major chord when it comes down to the technical annotation. But for all intents and purposes, there's only 2 notes here, so we can call it a power chord. We can make it a full chord, and now we can listen to this. So let's listen to it without that 3rd note. It's a little bit different. It sounds more open when I don't have that 3rd note in there. And what you can also do is you can make the chords longer. You could add more texture notes to them. And that's something we're going to get into when I get into the layering. I could bring this note down an octave. I could bring this note down an octave. It's going to sound a bit more full. And just when you add more notes, things sound differently. They could sound better or they could sound worse. Now, the next thing I want to talk about in melody is sometimes there's a struggle with a lot of students. I see this a lot of time versus in the chord versus out of the chord notes. So the way I like to look at music is within every chord, it's like a neighborhood. So in the neighborhood of this F chord right here, we're in the key of C, so we're using C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. You could use accidentals, and there's more tricky stuff you can do. We're keeping it simple here now. With an F major chord, if I'm writing a melody and I want it to be in the chord for that certain part of the neighborhood, I'm going to use F, A, and C. Now, if it's not in the chord, it may sound a bit dissonant. However, we still want to use that. And again, you want to strike a balance between your in chord notes versus your out of chord notes. Again, melody can be tricky, but all of these tricks, when you add them together and whenever you struggle, you can say, okay, maybe I have too many notes that are in the chord. Maybe I have too many notes that are out of the chord. So right here, this initial first bar, if I just listen to it, I have an F major chord. I have this G here, which I'm just going to get rid of for all intents and purposes. We have this C, and then we have it going to this G. So we have basically one note that's in the chord and one note that is not in the chord. And there can be harsher notes that you hear that don't sound good. For example, if I made this a B, you want to avoid situations like that when you're writing melodies. Now, the last tip I have for you, and thanks for watching all the way through at this point, is the grace note. This is something that's very simple that you can do right before your notes. And I have a perfect example. Actually, we'll use this one right here, where if we just give this a listen, this dun dun dun. So you take the preceding note, and then you take it and you add it off the grid right before the next note. So let's listen before. And it's very subtle, but if I take it away, it doesn't sound as good. That little drun, the grace note, it makes a huge difference. So guys, those are my top 10 tips. If you watch this through all the way at this point, it's going to dramatically change the way you write melodies, because whenever you're struggling with something, you can always reference a different tip here. Maybe you have too many notes. Maybe a certain part of your melody, the chord progression is not good. Maybe there just needs to be more directional movement, more rhythmic variation, right? Those are the things that truly matter when it comes to writing amazing melodies. Now, to show you the project file here, I played it earlier on. We have a lot of cool stuff going on. The first part I want to cover here is the piano chords, because this sounds really full, and this took me some time to make. So I'm just going to bring this up right here and show you guys all the different layers that are going on. I'm going to start down here, and we're going to work our way up. So if you notice, there's a lot of different layers going on here, guys. And this is something that takes a little bit of time to do, but we start here with a higher layer just to get that frequency in this area. Because whenever you want to have a nice full piano, you really want it to take up this entire spectrum of EQ. And this is not a mixing tutorial by any means, but what I decided was that I need to layer and layer and layer till this sounds really full. And I have two top layers here. One of them is the Contact Piano, the Grand, and then I also have an M1 by Korg. And this right here is just a random serum thing that I thought sounded good when I layered it on top. Now this is just in part of the pianos. I have more going on down here, but you'll even notice the chords. So I separated the melody from the chords and just put it on 3 different pianos, 2 Omnisphere pianos and 1 Contact piano. Yeah, this sounds awesome. And then I have right here, I have a Contact piano, I have a Nexus piano, and I have a beautiful main piano. I'll put the presets down below if you guys let me know if you're interested. Now, down here, I also have some other stuff going on just with the lead melody. This comes in more later on in the song, but if we listen. Now, what I find with pianos sometimes is they're just too dull. They don't have enough brightness to them. And that's why I have this lead here and I have some of these other pianos going on, because that frequency spectrum that I showed you guys on the piano, like, yeah, I'm boosting here like crazy because a lot of the piano, if we just look at this, takes place right here. And I'll turn this off. And I want some white noise up going on there because there's not so many other things going on in this part of the song, right? We also have some chords here that are just playing the chords that you saw above, but rhythmically, very subtly in the background. Again, you couldn't really hear it in the intro, but it's subtle. Really cool stuff, and maybe I could bring out more of the brightness in it, but it's just there. I also have a sub and some bass playing the bass notes on this. I have some claps that are slowly coming in the song if we listen. And I'm slowly using this filter automation to slowly bring in the clap here, and I'll play everything together. Down here in my effects area, I have some crowd cheers. Again, very subtle stuff, guys, but this is what makes music sound professional and what really takes you to the next level. We got some risers going on. Let me turn this off. And let's just listen to the crowd noise first. By itself, we'll mute this. And then some cymbal transitions. Bring in the rest. And then I also have something going on right down here, a little vocal effect. I don't know why I have it in here. I guess it made some sort of difference. But when you play it all together, which one I'm going to do right now for you guys and mute what's going on up here. And there's one part that I forgot to mention that takes place right here, and that is in our percussion. And what we have going on is we have a kick drum and a snare being slowly filtered in. Now let's just look at the kick drum, what's going on here. This is our kick drum. We're slowly filtering in the low frequencies to build the song up, right? Right? So that's one cool thing we're doing. And then on the snare, all that's going on is we're slowly filtering in the sound. versus here. And that concludes this video, guys. Again, if you liked it and you want a chance to win the 10,000 melodies, comment down below melody mastery, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications. I look forward to giving you as much value as I can. Let me know what else you think in the comments. And until then, I will see you in the next video.